what would reparations look like? How do you run this youth organization, reparations organization. You must have thought about this a lot. You mentioned CARICOM, the Caribbean Community, which is the organization representing the Caribbean countries, and they put forward this 10-point plan. And I recommend that anyone who's interested, just Google it. You'll find it. It's very detailed. People have thought hard about it. What are your thoughts about? Because people say, who's going to pay? Who's going to get it? How much? They raise these practical questions, and they throw all these practical questions into it. And of course, there's challenges. There's logistical challenges. There's questions of fairness and who gets it, and how do you distribute it, and how do you make sure there's no corruption, and how do you make sure it's do you have any answers for any of those practical questions? Look, we don't have we've only got a short amount of time to talk about this, but briefly, for those who are new to this conversation, do you have any ideas there?
Yeah. Well, first thing I like to say is that the biggest myth when we speak about the reparations is money. Who's going to give the checks? Where it's going to come from? Who is going to receive this money? And right. Reparations is much more than money. Even though money is important, money is needed. It is much more than money. Yeah. And at last CARIFESTA 14, we would have had a whole conversation on this particular topic. CARICOM reparative justice more than money. And what does reparations look like? That's a question that is personal as well, because reparations looks different from different persons, from different people, because reparations is basically repair. And there are people who are more damaged by the whole fact that they don't know where in Africa we came from. The Rastafarian community, their main concern is that they were taken away from their land. So we need repatriation. We need to head back to Africa, but not just send us back to Africa. Give us land, give us a fund that we can get to restart life in Africa, right? There are persons who believe that, because of enslavement, I didn't get to have the opportunity, like many people, to get to Oxford or Harvard, because the opportunities for people like African people are maybe slim. Maybe you have to have a real high grade. And of course, maybe financially, I didn't have that money. So for that person, a fund towards making more opportunities available for people of African descent to get higher education is reparations. For persons who would have dealt with psychological problems, for them, reparations, if money goes to a fund that helps them to psychologically rehabilitate, right? For persons who have, financial problems, trying to do business, for countries, for example, let's put on the spotlight Haiti, which is known as one of the poorest countries in South America, right? Which was one of the richest plantations at one time. But because of that, had to pay for their own reparations after winning a war. They seem to be poor, and a country that, of course, has so many bad labels to it. So for them, tax cancellations or debt cancellations would be reparations. So reparations is not just about writing checks and handing out to descendants of African people. It's about fixing some of the inequalities that were caused because of enslavement. Many people are unaware of who they are. We're trying to associate ourselves with anything that is great. And society has pushed the white man to be the greatest thing on the earth. Jesus is white, Batman, Superman, Hulk, everything that is bright, it is of white nature. So as a young boy, I don't want to be black. That's one of the reasons why we don't like ourselves that much. That's one of the reasons we try to be like everyone else. And trying to come out of who we are to be someone else is what destroys us more than it makes us better people. So reparations, what does reparations look like? That is something that everybody should think about personally, even for a person who is white, who is tired of seeing the disparities among white people and black people, who's tired when they walk into a room, black people look at them like, oh yes, there's a white guy. Those are things that white people can also giving back or trying to fix this unbalancedness within this world of slavery would have cost. It's going to help not only people of African descent, but it's going to make the world a better place. So reparations.
Maybe the first step, is kind of understanding what happened. As you said, is acknowledging, and to acknowledge, you have to understand the history. You have to educate yourself and understand.
And before you ask another question, on that point that you just said, acknowledging is to know. When you go to a doctor, let's say you had an accident or something of the sort, before or even while he's doing his physical inspection, he's going to ask you what happened. Once he knows the source that got you to the hospital, he's better informed on how to deal with the problem. We cannot deal with the disparities of today if we do not know what happened, what caused the disparities today. And the disparities that happen, that are facing, or what should I say, are traumatizing the world today, didn't happen after 1830 or the Emancipation Proclamation. It happened way before. It happened in that time of enslavement. So until we analyze, and that's why, of course, I commend HR 40, and I hope that it brings back some much research that gives us.
Could you just explain could you explain for the British and non-Americans here what HR 40 is?
Now, HR 40, of course, is it's a bill tabled in the Congress of the U.S. to understand and study slavery and what happened in that time, to actually see how they can deal with it, how they can face